All right, my friends. Next up, and let's go ahead and bring him over, is Matt Timpane, a market strategist over at Schaeffer's Investment Research, one of my favorite firms where I go to look at stocks, the research, everything I need, all the trade ideas I could possibly want. I go to Matt and team over there. Matt, how are you, man?
Not too bad. How about yourself, Patrick?
I'm alive and kicking, man. Alive and kicking. I'm going to let you go right to it, and I'll get out of your way here.
All right, perfect. Well, as I said, my name is Matthew Timpane. I'm a senior market strategist over at Schaeffer's Investment Research. We've been in business now for 40 years, providing retail investors with option trade recommendations, option education, and option news. I'm also a chartered market technician. So my trade is to deal with technicals, and no better place to look at that than in the cannabis market. So today's presentation, when will we, be in the next cannabis bull market? When will this happen? As I've stated kind of before at these conferences, this is something that's been really near and dear to my heart since high school. I've seen parents that were, unfortunately put on narcotics for bad back pains, things like that. With advancement in medical technology, not only were they able to get a surgery to help that pain, but then to get off the narcotics and to manage the pain that they still experience, they moved to cannabis, and it really kind of gave them their lives back. One guy I knew was in a bed for about 5 years after he fell onto an elevator, down an elevator shaft. And, he really now is hiking, in Arizona. So in retirement. So it's near and dear to my heart. I love being here. So I'm happy to be here with all of you today. So let's just take a look here. We're going to do a quick overview, states to watch in 2022, what to expect, a macro overview, and then some companies that we like. So far in 2021, New York, Connecticut, New Mexico, Virginia have all passed recreational usage this year. And Alabama actually legalized medical usage this year as well. Florida, Hawaii, Minnesota, Nebraska, and North Dakota considered, but they have not passed legislation to legalize cannabis this year, although I do believe voters, once again, will be trying to get it on the ballot in 22 in Florida after the previous reform was rejected by the state Supreme Court. For myself, Minnesota is my home state, and they did not pass legalization, as I stated, but they did relax laws this year on medical usage. Starting in March 2022, patients now will be able to purchase inhalable products. Previously, you were only able to use oil-based and capsule-based products that were allowed in the state. This really should lower the cost to as much as 1/3 for the Minnesotans paying for their prescriptions. Also, South Dakota is another state that we're going to want to be watching as we head into 2022. For recreational use, they actually passed a law that was supposed to go into effect in July 2021, but the governor backed a lawsuit to throw out the referendum, and it's currently being seen in the Supreme Court there. So that's something we're going to really want to monitor as we move forward, because Florida already had their state Supreme Court throw out a referendum. So this is something we want to see for precedents moving forward. Delaware is a state that has already has medical marijuana program, I believe, since 2011, and now they want to make it legal for adult use. They filed in 2021, but it never came to the floor. So they're hoping they can take that back up in January of 2022. Maryland, the state house speaker already has promised to pass legislation to put legalization before the voters on the 2022 ballot. Missouri has a lot of activity going on right now in the cannabis area. They kind of have included a movement to modify their existing medical marijuana program and place the referendum before voters in 2022, and then also making a recreational legal case before the voters as well. Arkansas, they have an activist group called True Grass that is collecting signatures right now to get adult use legalization on the ballot in 2022. And then Ohio, where we're based out of and I live, we've currently had medical usage now for about 2 years, but legalization is currently being pursued through 2 different avenues. There's a legalization bill in the state legislature currently right now, and they also just obtained enough signatures to put it on the 2022 ballot to let the voters decide. Oklahoma also has advocates making a strong push for the 2022 ballot. They did had plans to get it on that 2020 ballot, but unfortunately the pandemic cut short those plans. So they're hoping to see it on the 2022 ballot. And then finally, Wyoming. Wyoming did fail to pass legalization this year, but advocates have won approval from the state for ballot language on a referendum to put before voters, and they are currently gathering the necessary signatures to put it on the ballot. So let's take a look at the U.S. cannabis industry ETF that I like to look at, the Advisors Peer U.S. Cannabis, MSOS. So right out of the gate, when it was initiated and put onto the exchanges or like an IPO, it came out, it kind of fell, but then it took off for almost 100% return. Anytime you see parabolic moves like this, you're always going to get a correction. So while we were all happy in January and February, heading into March, a lot of times there is risk to this, and I did talk about that at the previous presentation I was at in February. Right now, we are now trading down to what we like to call its half high. It's down minus 48% from peak to trough, which is also the minus 20% year-to-date level and just below its 20% year-over-year level. So these are levels that traders sometimes gauge off of these nice round numbers on year-to-date, year-over-year levels. So what we'd like to see is that for it to continue to hold this level right here and then break back out above 33. Breaking out of that downtrend would be just huge. There's a couple reasons why. There's puts that are being sold. If you look at the open interest chart right over here at 33. And so what that means is market makers are typically short right now this because they sold those puts. So they will be able to buy back these shares as we approach 33. And if we break out, they won't have to be short those shares to offset the puts that they sold. What's not on the chart is peak call. If that's at 41, so that would be your first target if this breaks out, would be the $41 area. You could also maybe see some resistance around 38. Failure here, though, would likely also bring this down to about 26. That's kind of the right where it kind of was initiated and put on the exchange, around 25, 26. And then also you kind of see that there was a hesitation back there in November around this level. So currently, it is also trading below all moving averages, but this is where you can usually find a way to find these extreme oversold buy opportunities. You just need to be careful with your allocation and not go all in into this sector at this time because the technicals just aren't there. Let's look at MJ. This is a little bit better for international Canada companies based. So something we like to talk about. Last February, we were talking about how it entered this band right here of resistance. Now, where did it fail? It failed right in that band. So we were having a conversation that we need to get back through this band, and it didn't do that. So since then, it's fallen nearly 61%. We've noticed with high volume, high volatility stocks that sometimes Fibonacci percentages work on price, not just for retracements or extensions. So it's an interesting thing. Every once in a while, we run a screen on it. I'm actually in a trade right now that's on. That was a driver for it. But MJ is also now chilling out around the year-to-date mark at 5%. It's just below the 20% year-over-year level. If it does kind of break down, there is this gap to fill here at 1350. That would bring you to the year-to-date break-even mark. Perfect area for entry for somebody that's looking for a real contrarian move. The one thing I would say is peak call is at 17. You could see some resistance. So that would be an area that you would want to watch out for, but that can change. And then, I'm not going to really show the other two ETFs, YOLO or CMBS. All kind of really look the same as MJ. They're all trading well below their 80-week moving averages. So something that we just kind of want to, be aware of. Looking at a relative chart, I popped this up at the February conference as well, and I said this kind of support resistance band is going to be kind of an area that you're going to want to watch going forward, whether you want to be more U.S.-centric in your allocations or more international, Canadian-based. And it looks like, we kind of sat there. It acted as resistance since I last spoke. Now we've popped back up. It's kind of come back down to test it. And now it looks like the U.S.-centric companies are going to probably outperform international companies or Canadian-based companies currently. This is how I would look at it, and it's something I would continue monitoring as we move forward. And MJ versus the S&P 500. there isn't a ton to go off of either. We are finding maybe possible support down here on a relative basis. You could draw trend lines. I'm not big on those for a technical basis on relative charts, as some of their technicians are. What I would look for is to round out this bottom base here, and you might have room to come back up and test prior support now turned into resistance. This is probably where you would look for taking some of your shares off if you get long any of the cannabis industry stocks. MSOS versus the S&P 500, again, not much to go off of, but we are looking to hold that initiation the day it started trading level here. Might put in like a little bit of a higher low into the, kind of have like a nice little base, and then hopefully resume back upwards. So the best proxy that we really have for seasonality data is MJ, the Alternative Harvest ETF. So I wanted to kind of take a look at the effects and what it has done in the past. So for the past 6 years, which is the length it's been dominantly kind of traded, has been positive 67% of the time by an average of 12.5% in January. Now, for a nice round half decade mark, 5 years, the past 5 years, January has been positive 80% of the time by an average of 17.1%. Now you're going to probably say, well, what about October, November, December? November has been positive on average 80% of the time, with an average gain of 8% over the last 5 years. So October could be a real good buying opportunity here as well for traders. But expect a dip back into December. That's typically only positive, maybe 50% of the time, but it's only down on average around 2%. So it's also kind of setting you up for that huge January seasonal effect that we've seen in cannabis stocks. And if you look at a chart, it just stands out as well. So definitely look going into the new year for allocation preferences into January, as that has been the most bullish month by far for cannabis stocks. Some of the companies that we like, this one we actually looked at the last conference. We still like it a lot. Innovative Industrial Properties. It's a REIT that buys properties from cultivators and leases it back to them. This, it currently has revenue growth of the last 12 months was 118%. Next year is expected to be flat, but the technicals look really good. Where did it pull back recently? This pullback was on the dot, 100% year over year level. It's just amazing how those levels kind of stick. And it's been trading lower ever since, but it's got a similar pattern to it that it had back in early 2021 here. So it's something I keep watching. Also, we highlighted before the 80-day moving average on this is extremely significant. So above the 80-day, you typically want to be long. Below the 80-day, you want to either be out of it or be short. And if for some reason we do get a larger pullback in cannabis stocks before this takes off again, the area I'd look is, because if you broke this 220 level, you probably break this trend line as well with the 80-day. Your next buying opportunity would be around 200 here. Because as you can see, it was previous resistant multiple times. Even after we broke through, we came back through after a failed move, and it found resistance there until it could finally break out and stay out. So that's where we'd be looking on innovative industrial properties. The next company that we like is Grow Generation Corp. It's a farm supply company catering to the cannabis industry for lighting, hydro, soils, and nutrients. And with these next few charts, you're going to see a little bit of a theme. It's a 500-day moving average. Not a lot of people look at this, but they tend to be significant, just like the 1,000-day and just like some other odd moving averages. So you'll see it's right there right now, just at those previous highs that were set in 2020, late 2020, before it broke out. It's down 65% since its peak. And the one thing that we did highlight before is you had to watch out, like if it broke down from this trend line that it was going in 2021 around 35, you need to be out of the stock. We've been in calls this year, puts and straddle plays on this because this thing likes to move. Right now, we think, you could have a longer term buying opportunity. Options are priced in the 15th percentile, so that's good for option buyers that are looking to make a contrarian play here. Volatility scorecard, which is something that we put on our website. What it is, it's basically how often is it outperforming its 21-day straddle. Right now, that volatility scorecard on Grow Generation is at 84. Expected revenue growth going forward is still 34.1%. In the last 12 months, it was nearly 170%. So it's a good opportunity we see in this company. It still has a high short interest near 10%, which is approaching those August 2020 highs, which was just before it took off as well. The next company is Village Farms International. It's a vertically integrated greenhouse grower in North America. Revenue growth the last 12 months was 41%. It could not hold the 2019 highs when we were talking about it before, but where is it now? Right at the 2018 highs, right at this 500-day moving average as well. As you can see, it's acted beautifully as support before and resistance multiple times. It's also at its 200-week moving average. Options are priced in the 18th percentile, and its buy to open 50-day put call volume ratio is in the 90th percentile. So if this thing gets going, there is potential for an unwind move here as well. And then finally, we have Trulieve Cannabis Corp. It's a Canadian-based medical cannabis company, cultivates and produces all of its products in-house and then distributes those products to dispensaries. I know places like Florida, California, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. The products are, flowers, edibles, vaporizers, concentrates, etc. And the same theme. This is kind of the stock that put me onto this 500-day moving average in this sector. It found support right there at the 500-day moving average. Found this horizontal support that was right there as well that dated back a little bit further, and it bounced. They also just recently had a 32% revision in revenue growth upwards. In the last 12 months, it did put in just about 95% revenue growth as well. So this is another one that if this broke out above this downtrend, it would be an active trade. So you'd look for a move above 30 to get long this stock. That's it for me today. Thank you very much for taking the time. We'd always love to chat with you about your options trading, about stocks. Feel free to come over to schaeffersresearch.com. We have a bunch of free education and free news there on options. And give us a follow on Twitter at Schaeffers and at mtimpane, and reach out anytime. We're always available.
Hey, Matt, I really appreciate that. If you don't mind, I'll just ask you one quick question.
Yeah.
When it comes to investing in nascent markets like this one, right? Cannabis, everybody says it's, the first inning, bottom of the first, top of the second, right? That's where we are in this one.
Exactly.
And obviously the volatility has been just nutty in this one and the markets overall, but it has had a profound effect on the cannabis industry. What advice, and obviously not specific advice, but what do you suggest that a lot of the investors out there look at if it's just one thing that they're honing in on? Is it fundamentals? Is it looking at charts? Is it specific areas of the company's financials that they should be doing research on? What's the number one thing that you would advise them to look at?
Actually, thanks for asking. I feel like I might have missed this on one of my slides, actually, and it kind of lets me address the question.
Of course.
So I would look at it from kind of a holistic perspective. The one thing that you're going to want to see from a fundamental perspective is constantly growing revenue, increasing TAM. Kind of it gives you that mentality that you need to be able to be in these growth stocks, and it gives you the confidence to stay in them. But you need to have the technicals line up as well. So the two best people that I feel that are going to be able to invest in the cannabis sector is traders who can manage risk and catch the meat of the move, because cannabis, when it moves, the momentum will carry for quite a while. But then when it breaks, you need to get out. You're never going to call the top or the bottom. But then the other investor that's going to be really good at this is somebody that's either like a crossover or startup investor that understands that some of the companies are probably going to go to zero. But other companies are going to 20 times, 50 times or more. So what you're going to do is you're going to build a basket of stocks, and you're going to understand that some of them aren't going to make it. Hopefully you get out before they go to zero, since they are publicly traded. Also, if you are thinking about like allocating to the sector, depending on your risk tolerance level, you should think about it kind of like crypto, right? Like a lot of people wanted to still have allocations to crypto, but they really have a hard time stomaching the volatility that's in it. Cannabis is exactly the same way. So you should look at it as, what can I stomach? A lot of investors I know that are a little bit more conservative look at it from like, maybe we'll put 2% or 5% into this risky asset. Now, you probably want to divide that up. So if you want to have some risky exposure to crypto, EVs, cannabis, all these other areas, you will want to divide that up within whatever allocation in your broader portfolio, say maybe 10%. That way you can stomach that volatility, and a minus 50% drawdown isn't going to affect your broader portfolio as much as,
Sure.
If you were at 25%, say, allocation to risk.
Well, Matt, I appreciate that, man. And the reason I ask is that for a lot of the investors watching, this industry is really interesting for all types, right? It provides opportunity for all types. It's your risk tolerance, one, and I think we all know that. But then two, it's just your strategy. Whether you're going to be in long and you're just going to figure out, all right, some of these are going to miss, and that's okay. But the ones that make it will be big winners, ideally. And ideally the other set are the folks that have all the time in the world to jump in there and trade, right?
Exactly. So you kind of got to make up who you're going to be when you're investing in this space, and then just follow the plan accordingly. That's the big thing about it. Otherwise, you could experience pain. So you just want to be careful and decide who you are and what best fits your personality as well.
And no one wants to experience pain, Matt. So I really appreciate that. Awesome. So Matt Timpane, market strategist at Schaeffer's. Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you and the Schaeffer's group with us. I thank you again.
Wonderful. Have a great day, Patrick.
You too.